Welcome back to Nightingale's Motorcycles, Metal Finishers and Restorers. Right, we're on Monday the 24th of February. Been busy weekend. We've been at Elverton Raceway to straight liners. We took some pictures and had a mull around. I was taking some bits back for a customer, so it was great. I kind of did two things at once. Some interesting guys there. As I say, when you get into more specialist stuff and turbos and blowers and all kinds of tricks, it becomes more interesting. They're all a wealth of knowledge. And today's video is going to be mixed. We're going to mix it up with Beginner's Guide to Restoration. Now that's going to go on longer than I thought, because I think for the skilled out there and the people out there who build bikes all the time, got to appreciate there are a lot of people who come in or ask questions and they're just trying to get the basics. And that's why I've started this video, to show them something. Just hold back with things while I'm doing things. And I know you're going to say, oh, that can do that, can do this, but yeah, it's just some things we're going from a start, which will carry on right the way through, and we'll go into workshop in a minute. Right, so we're back on video 2 now, and I started off with some small motorcycles, both the same. I've only got one on today to show you. So we've got to these different sectors, from sector 1, sector 2 and sector 3, kind of in restoring. And just to go over that briefly, from the one outside, what pulls up, which is a machine which is, you know, running, sad state of affair, but ride, run and enjoy it. Sector 2, which is this part of restoration, which opens up an absolute minefield, the biggest part of it, how I see it. And then the section I'll say at the end, section 3, which is concourse restoration, which is another league. So I was talking about the broad spectrum of restoring in the 2 sector, where you've got something like this, no matter if it's a multi-cylinder or a single cylinder bike, 2-stroke or 4-stroke. The decision is, when you go like this is a good engine, you can ride it, you can run it, it starts first kick, little 4-stroke 75cc Honda, and you look at it and you think, right, what would I do if I move from this part 2 to 3? Well, this is where the money really starts. So I'm going to go over a little bit of it, but what I'm going to go back on is back to when you're picking your first bike, when I said you've made the decision to what you're buying, and go with the flow, something you wanted, and think to yourself, right, there's one thing you must do if you're new into this, or you've been into bikes all your life but never thought about doing one up. My advice again would be that you buy one which you can, not on an auction, where you can go and see it. You can try everything, indicators, lights, main beam, brake lights, they're all silly things, but it'll all come back to one thing. Even when you rev it up, does the light, does it go up or down, to see if it's putting anything back into it from the charging system. And take somebody with you. If you haven't been on a bike for a long time, it can be quite nervy. And if you aren't used to talking to people and you feel embarrassed in their zone, then take somebody else with you, we'll give it a ride up and down, or make the person you're buying it off take it up and down and watch out for different things. I went through things like pre-MOT in the first video, where you're doing checks with spokes and general wear and tear and looking at everything. And then you start looking at the bike and you think, I've said about nuts and bolts around that, they aren't ragged, these are on Phillips screws. Because if we start moving up into another section, it's easy to buy just Allen keys, Allen screws and put them all in, but for the purists, it's where you're going. Now you still might be into this in your stage 2, where you're putting them all back, because once these little Phillips, even if they've gone off a bit like these, they aren't rounded off or anything, but if you take them off and you round them off slightly, I like that one's just got a little bit of a bear on it, you can buy the same Phillips crosshead screws, you know, some waterproof grease on them, slide them back on, and it keeps it original. So you look to these 2 bikes which are the same and you think to yourself, Well, yeah, they're fantastic. So you'd probably stop at that. But if you had to go into the next stage 3, we'd start doing things like, you see its originality of the zinking, this gold zinc, like when I go on about on the RDs and the LCs, the green olive, which I've got something to say on that one as well, because I've had a few people inquiring, and we always do that colour. And it shows you all your brake cams, what's going for zinking, your chrome wear, which classed as your tin wear, and then your fading of your casings, was it on silver? Was the rocker box polished as standard like that with a coat on it, maybe a coat of lacquer? Were the forks over the years been polished? And you've got a belt sander across it, and we put the original sizzle finish on it, because if we're moving up into the next stage, it's how it would have been when it came out of the factory. Maintaining original frame numbers and engine numbers important. Painted, not powder coated. But you can still, as I said in video 1, we can zinc, rub down and paint with conventional paint so it doesn't show you the powder coating, because once we get to the purest in stage 3 sector, as I always say, the next thing, you might have good stanchions like this with no pitting and no oil leaks, but what you're up against is they're probably dulled off to when they were new, so you'd send them for recoating. Same as your spokes, they're all good and solid, some are still shiny, but you strip the wheel down, you'd look at the rim, they'd either be taken back and ready for re-chroming, re-spoking, and then taking this back to how it was original, which we would probably walnut blast this, vapor blast it, then we'd put a sizzle finish across it, we'd discolour it a bit and put a lacquer on it, so they're all money. So when you start looking, you know, 2 wheels and you're going through it, the hundreds of pounds start changing into section 3, even down to your speedo. This is on kilometres, but if it was a double bank, you send them away and have them new clocks, new dials, put back at the original mileage, but we're talking hundreds of pounds. So you go from a bike, which is really nice, to all of a sudden going into the next sector, which we'll discuss a bit more in the next video. So we're going to move over soon. I'm going to keep on coming back to restorations, but the great thing about mixing this up, instead of just talking what to look for, I'll tell you one more thing first, but I am moving on to some, I mentioned a Merlin trials bike had come in, and what I was doing with that was the customer who was negotiating what was going to be done with it. He's taken the engine in, he'd ridden it round his garden, he's a competent trials rider, he rides modern stuff like these, and a lot of classic twin shocks, and I'll catch up with that and tell you, because we had a casing smash and I was going to show, so I might as well show you the parts, what we've discussed, because that's about restoration, what it's all about. So I'll just go back to one more thing, but there'll be loads every week on different things what to look for. So when I say you trying everything out, if it's a road bike, and it's got indicators on, especially, and clocks and lights and neutral lights, is look for it all. But a big thing is when you take the tank and seat off, this is my personal opinion in restoration, is most of these wiring looms, which you don't see, but you can see bullet connectors and spades on it, have been on probably 40 years. When you start to restore a bike, I always find it's the first thing you should be looking at as well. I might be bouncing from one to another, but although we use our phones for everything, and you can put this into a separate file or whatever, but we don't. We do that for a bit and then we just start clicking pictures. Is get a camera separate. It's fantastic, because everything I do in here, bits I'm going to show you today what I've been done in the workshop, which are restoration, they're all part of a portfolio for when you sell it. Plus the biggest thing, it's alright stripping something down, but when you come back together, now did that go? Was that washer there? Was this here? Now this is same with your wiring loom. The wiring loom's been on probably 40 years. When you go and buy a bike, you're looking for any evidence of horrible bullet connectors. The more technical the bike gets onto multi-cylinder, you might find you've got more things on it. electrics. These are pretty basic, but still can be a swine, because when you take the tank and seat off, if we was going to restore this at any point, what I do with the wiring looms, I put air dryer on them and I keep it on 20 minutes, half an hour, and I get it supple, because once it comes off, everything works now, but when you take it off it can crack, as I'm going to show you. I did on the last video, something off a flywheel, a cable, and they get brittle. But then when you take the wiring loom off, like that's the on, there's a green, there's a black or a red, mark that up as on. When you take the headlight off, main beam to the indicators, mark every bit of that loom up, ignition coil, your live, your return, even the earth to the frame. Coming along, there'll be a rectifier, there'll be something coming out of here from your stator, a low voltage creeping up here, maybe a couple of wires, say where it's from as it follows through to the indicators, the backlight, the brake light, and a loom coming down to a little switch for your brake light, back brake light. Just cover every part of it. It's important with looms, don't just rip it off. Get it warmed up, because once they're brittle, if they are subject to bullet connectors and everything else, I always look for a new loom. Nothing worse, because it's big faults when it comes to building the bike back up. Right, so everything's restoration and tips, you know, in a restoration workshop. And I know we're lucky that we're surrounded by just about everything we can in here to restore motorcycles and the equipment we have. But this was the Merlin 350 trials bike, Cagiva engine, Merlin bike. It's got the mag wheels on it. And this could be you at home sending something in. Now this is the one in video 1 where the customer's just bought this bike, competent rider, been riding all his life, trials. And the thing is, he's had a go around the garden in it, on this bike, just having a play on it. And he said he was quite happy with it. So he's brought the engine in because we want to discuss, and that's why I've done a few things. So I've had him in. Again, I've asked 2 customers today if I can show their motor, if I can show the frame. We'll always ask you, because some things we can't show obviously. And we've gone through a few things and my findings. So I'll go through that now with you. So right, so it's just like you buying something now off a site. He bought this off a site many miles away, and we've had it couriered to his house, and it was as described. Now this is where I'm saying, when you're restoring anything or going to buy your bike, you know, unless you're fully up with it and you've bought it at such a price that it can save you thousands of pounds of which way you're going to go. So even little tips like that wiring loom, you know, if you're seeing everything working and then tag everything up and it ain't bullet connected up, horrible red and blue bullets and nasty connectors, it's just not right. It'll just let you down. So we've got this engine in now. All I've done, now remember this is a beginner's guide, so as people out there who are fully aware what I'm on about, but to someone watching in, we're just going to keep it pretty basic, because we aren't trying to put too many words in our names into confusion. And we'll keep these videos rolling. You can always ask questions, like we do. If we don't know, we'll ask somebody. It's the same thing, you never stop learning. So what it came is, the head and the barrel was on the engine. The customers rode it round the garden. He was happy with it. So he hadn't really had it on a good blast to see if it's doing anything else. I changed it down suddenly through the gearbox. So what I've done is then, I've taken the head and the barrel off the bike, right? So I'm going to show you a manual now, which I say when you get a manual to the bike you like. So what that is on the manual, close up, we've got the head and the barrel, head, barrel, the piston and the rings, and we've lifted it off. Probably 8 bolts, nothing technical, straight off. Right, so the head came off easy, the barrel lifted off, and as you can see, for anybody, it's quite a big piston this for a single cylinder. Right, it's a big lump that, but it is a 350. Quite an heavy head, quite an heavy engine compared to a modern trials bike. So it come apart very easy. So what the customer was on about originally, when I had a word with him, if we took the head and the barrel off, and the barrel where the piston goes into and the compression rings are good, my suggestion was that we'd just put new rings on for the compression, saving hence money again, and then just a top end. That's what's called a top end rebuild, right? So don't worry if you're buying a 2-stroke or a 4-stroke, don't let it put you off. I can see if you went into multi-cylinders or up to a CBX6, but you're starting off, this is the idea. But don't worry because it's a 4-stroke, it only has a chain and a cam and some valves, and a little bit more setup, but it's nothing. So this is a top end of the engine. So we've stripped it off, and I'll tell you what I've found with it. So the findings were the cylinder head and the barrel wasn't the usual torqued down tight or stuck after years of been sat there. It was pretty loose. So 8 bolts off with the head where the spark plug goes, then off with the barrel straight off, and as I say, the customer brought this engine in. Now originally we were talking about things which I'm going to show you in a minute, because this had on, I spoke in video 1, it had punched an hole in the casing, and we were just generally talking on cosmetics and probably painting, taking the head and barrel off and giving this a ceramic coat or a finish, and seeing what state the piston and the bore was in, just to save money for reborning or lining. So first inspection was the piston looks really clean, and we'd obviously get a new set of rings. It's on its standard bore. So that's the first 30 seconds into it, bang, we've got that. So the barrel's good, always are good for your costings, the piston's good, but we'd need a set of rings. So we can track them down, probably about 40 quid. The trouble was when I stripped the head, when I took the head off, it has a copper gasket, and then when we take the barrel off, they have a base gasket fitting the base top end of the engine. The base gasket were missing, just some sealant round it. With it being loose as well, that comes to a thing that you would think that someone had just recently been where I've been into it now. So we go a bit further and just put this round, just so now it falls in. So now we've got the piston which joins onto a rod, which is called a conrod. In the top half of the piston we've got a small end because it's the smallest part, and the bottom is the big end. So it's the small end bearing and big end bearing. So when you hear rattles on things and doing things, it can be a small end rattling in there. It's a roller bearing. If there's anything in the bottom end, it causes the biggest problems, because what we've got is the full engine assembly has to be cracked. So that's everything out. You can't get any further than that. It's like someone with a TLR 200. If the kickstart spring, though it sounds silly, kickstart on the outside, the kickstart spring's broken and limp, the spring is in the middle of that engine. So the engine has to come apart. Sometimes the springs are just here on the clutch backside. So it's a big job, major job, but I'll tell you what we did next to find. So the first thing again is, it's what the customer wants. So you can advise, but there's something which many out there will know already, is when, especially your single cylinders, your trials bikes, your motocrosses, we all buy a bike and it's great for a while and you're riding it, but when you kick it down through the gears, things in your head start going which you didn't think you had at first, and usually it's vibration. You're convinced there's a noise, a tinging noise, a knocking noise, something isn't right. Now this can be through a transmission drive, through bearings, it can be through other bearings in the engine, and these kind of jobs to me, what we were discussing was just taking the top end off, refreshing the rings and putting it back together with a bit of a paint job. This bike's getting a bigger picture. I've done the tank, I've re-glassed it, I put a liner in it. Now the wheels are down. The rims are down. This isn't your ordinary kind of bike, because when we're talking spokes, they're the spokes. These are mag wheels on a trials bike, but they're put together separately. So another issue on that we'll go into a minute, which the customers found. So when you get these jobs which are like this, a refresh, if you've known the bike for a long time and you've whipped this out, because at the end of the day there's a couple of bolts, you know, a friend with you could whip the back bolt out, whip it out, take the exhaust out and take your engine out, you know. It's not bad, single cylinder bike. You've got to start somewhere, so it's a good start on something like this. So you come for this. Now this is where I'd like to say, great, you can have a bit of a paint job, and for your money side of it. But what happened is I've taken this down, and the reason I'm going to show you this is, I'll show you a close-up look again. So we've got cylinder head, barrel, piston and the rings. We've got a rod there. We now know that this is a smaller than the bigger, so hence called the small end, and this is called your big end, right? So what we've got here is, we did a test. Now basically, you know, these smaller engines the size of a peanut, they are a problem. None of them are a problem, but when you've got banks or something, multiples, it's all money. So you add the money on. So when you get hold of the con rod, we aren't bothered about the small end bearing, because when we take this out anyway and just put, it's just a roller bearing, a needle, and the needle's in the bottom as well. But like in the picture, the crankshaft has to be pressed apart, put back in, and you rebalance it. So when I get the rod and hold it up close, now you might be able to get close, you might be able to hear this. I ain't worried, you're always going to get play left to right. Now these are a bit excessive there, but if it didn't have this other problem, so small end bearing, big end bearing. So when I get hold of the rod and I bring it up, you might hear it. There's a clicking noise. It's not side to side, up and down. So there's play in the big end bearing. So that's not good. So next, if that destructs itself, the rollers come out, it's critical in the engine, and it could lock up completely and cause, well, destruction. So what that means then is, back to the big end, you've seen the small end, there's a roller needle bearing in there. That's the crankshaft, and it has to be pressed apart. So that little needle there, well, it can be one of three maybe. It can be a bit of wear in the con rod, the pin, or the roller. But it's one of them. So it's there. So for me, not good, because it's not going to get better. You know, it's not going to get any better. It's only going to get worse. So when you're doing a restoration, the engine's out, these are one or two things you've got to decide. Now for me, it's a no-go. That would need looking at. Unfortunately, it needs cracking down, time. Again, once you crack down, you've got all your other bearings in the engine and seals to buy. And then you've got a set of rings. It's just money, it's all money. And this is a thing, like I'm saying, you're buying a bike now where you bought it. You might have been along to ride the bike. And this is the kind of thing you can come up with, so be ready for it, because it can happen. Now to cap this, the crankshaft, and the reason I've pulled this drawing out, isn't actually the drawing of this bike. I've got one on my phone, but this is a Bull Taco, and it's nearly the same engine. Now, on the end of both sides of here, what we've got basically, on this side here, which we always go for the weight side, on the flywheel, which generates to that wire I showed you, which was all crimped up and cracked. Another thing you've got to look for, again, wiring, that's the kind of thing we're looking for. Look, you know, luckily we can re-sleeve this, it hasn't broken through. So when you get on your flywheel side, in the flywheel, and we go to this, now I might get close, you might hear this one. So if we just get close up on this one, so you go for a movement. Right, so we've got play in the two bearings which hold the crankshaft in. So I'll come back to a drawing. We've got a bearing, and we've got play on it. So these are the kind of things that when you half do a job, yes, you can ride this round your garden and take it for a ride, but when you change down, you might start hearing noises. And this is the kind of thing it comes from. When these get excessive, they can even wear the outer cover. But you can put this engine back together now and it'll run fine. But it might start having problems, like might start altering tick over a little bit, because there's crankshaft seals in here as well, which replace the seals when we do the bearings. Now fortunately on some machines, as the diagram shows here, when you have a look, sometimes there's a casing, a cap. Saying this rod was okay, we can remove the flywheel with a puller, special pullers you have, and you can undo some bolts and put the bearings in from this side. But sometimes you can't, so again it's stripped down. So we've gone from a top end refresh to now looking at the engine, which is needing a complete restrip, which if you were buying this out, you'd now, because it isn't exciting, you're wasting money and you can't see anything for your hard work and your money you're spending, so it really knocks you to the floor. The only thing that's a bonus is while it's down, you can get the casings properly blasted, everything tidied up, but time you put it back together, your bill now, you think you bought yourself a bargain, it's coming up now. No matter if you don't come into someone like myself, wherever you are, this is the kind of thing someone will be telling you. So it's things to look at now. Could this man have seen this problem? No, impossible. You know, in the shorter time span you have it somewhere, trying it, we tend to just go, ticks over, or it's been stood a while, and you take it away, and when you get it back and take it to somebody, this is what starts to, and your hobby now becoming a little bit downhill. So we'll go on to the next thing with it. And you look at things on the engine, when you take this outer cover on, which we discussed the other day because it had a crack in it with you on the video one, you see things still in zinc, bright zinc. Now, up to 2 years back I used to do a lot of zinc and I stopped it. And in restoration really you use, but now it's better for me to farm it out if there's a box of it, because I do it in mass amounts. I just found it wasn't as good, some of the chemicals I was using. I don't know whether it's, you know, things are changing, and but I wasn't happy with it. I was happy with the finishes, but it become a little bit boring because, you know, there's no technical about this, but when you're building stuff up, so when you look in these casings and you go, wow, look, it's all original, that's nice and shiny. Yeah, I agree. It means you haven't had a lot of ingress of water in probably, because trials bikes or motocross bikes are subject to it, you know, and the electronics are in here, there been points, capacitor, or, you know, electronic ignition. But yeah, so we've now faced with that play into there, big end, main bearings, and possibly stripped down. I've had a word with the customer, he actually isn't bothered, so that's his call. He's spending a lot of money on this bike. When I came back to taking the good bits off, like the barrel, when people talk about barrels, you're always looking for scores in barrels. When you talk about oversize, is it standard? If you hear oversized pistons, it gets rebored out, and an oversized piston, oversized rings. Again, anything you can stop by any centre piston and a bore, there's no scours in that, there's no scars on the piston, evidence of seizing, especially with a bit of two-stroke, no worries there, so that's always good news. So, cylinder head's okay. What we did look at though in that first video, you see that crack again, that fin off. That's a massive fin off that. So this could have been, when I said this head was loose, to me that looks like a fresh crack, that. Now, with it having no base gasket on, my way of thinking is he's stripped it down, he couldn't get the barrel off, he's give it a smack with an hammer, put no warmth onto it, he's cracked a fin, this would be my detection on it, he's got the barrel off, he's either himself or he's got a mechanic in, the mechanic's gone, oh dear. Oh dear, forget it. barrel back on. Didn't want to buy a gasket set, which will probably cost him 40-50 quid if he can get one. Luckily the customer's tracked one down for this. And then he's put it back together, tightened it back up, it's got compression on it, started it up, picture of it running, off we go, sold it. But this is where you start. So pretty sad, but for me this is back to that thing when I say which level you're riding at. So this level, this bike was nearly running, it was all complete. So apart from a problem further on we've found, this could have been number 1. But now it's gone into number 2, and already I've done the tank. We're into a few hundred quid there. We're now looking at this, even the gasket set. Now even a mechanic, now this could vary around the country wherever you are. I'm based in North Yorkshire, Scarborough. This could probably vary from a 400 quid job to a 1200 quid job. Because somebody won, you know, Gajiva, Charles bike, 40-year-old, parts sourcing, might be a nightmare. You know, some of the bearings will take numbers off inside, because when you strip it down, you'd obviously change all your gearbox bearings and seals, your seal kit for it. So it's not just this job, it's afterwards, and then while it's down, you'd be spending money having the casings cleaned and probably ceramic coated. So we'll go on to the next bit. So that fin we discussed at first, I said, oh, I'd love to do this kind of thing, because I do loads of fins. Right, micro pin them. These are extra thick pins. These on our little TL, we're using micro pins, and then I even do a latex copy over the pinning, so I can the transfer of the casting I can put over the latex, and I can get it to nothing. Can get it perfect. But now the customer don't want that doing. Good one though, because I mean that'd be a nightmare for me. I couldn't put that back together like that. The exhaust on this one runs across here. So it hides all this. So it's good in one way, not in another. But again, we're going back to 1, 2 and 3. Rideable bike, which he was riding, he rode it. Had another problem, which I'll tell you in a minute. A couple of smacks in the casings, but now it's been getting in. Obviously the gear lever's come down, punched its way through casings. Even the sprockets. The engine sprocket, they're only a small sprocket these. Good. So yeah, no leaks around the seals, and obviously this, when he drained this engine oil out before he brought it to me, it had brand new engine oil put in as well, and it was ultra thick was the engine oil. Now that's not good as well. So yeah, so we've done our detective work on it, and I think if I had to tell you that, that's what I'd have found, and what you've just bought yourself like he has. So we're moving on to the next bit now. We're not doing the fin. So we've gone past the engine at this stage, because he said he wants it building back up. So he's got a gasket set, there's some rings on the way, and now we've looked at alternatives. So if I get close up here, I've just done a vapour blast. Did this with light walnut first, and did it with a vapour blast, because it could be you at home now. And if you look at the stuff what gets sent in to me weekly, I'm talking to you on emails, or I like to talk to you about the phone, but I don't know you as a customer. So I'd be doing this kind of thing, and always doing photographs and sending you them. So this is plan A, see what it's like underneath. At first he was going to go for a ceramic coating, 625C, petrol resistant brake, fluid resistant, nice black velvet on there, looks stunning, don't come out the factory. Obviously he's seen this now and he wants it taken back, so he wants it vapouring now. But there's a few things I can't live with these. I'll take these out and just tidy them fins up. Can't do anything with that one, but as you can see, that is a fresh brake. When it's behind an exhaust, you'd think why, so it's nothing to do with the exhaust. That's been someone giving it big licks on the barrel and snow base gasket built back up, so we know what that is. So the next thing we'll discuss, Right, so initially when it came in, we were looking at just tidying it up and ideas, but he knew he had this punch mark. All I've done is taken that to an ultra fine oxide, just to show you now on camera, because if not, and we've taken this off. No signs of water in here at all. Nice and shiny, which is good, so I haven't been letting anything. So that's the punch mark into the casing. You can see at the back, look, right? So what I've said to him was, I'll just warm that up, smack that out, get it smashed down on pad, get it level, but I will have a seam or a crack. Now if this was going for ceramic coating, we don't have the luxury, as I've said many times, of a base coat primer. So what I've suggested then, when I saw it, I said if we smack this out and get it tidied up, bit of diamond grinding, we'd zinc coat that cover in powder and do it in a nice satin powder coating, SIP powder, so it looks really smooth, no orange peel, and you can get this label reproduced, so it'll look good on there. So what happens then is, I've done that as vapour, and then he's got his hubs. So what happens with his hubs is, this is where it changes again, but this could be you at home, because what have I said about putting your own touch on things or doing things? This is the idea of having someone to talk to and restore. You know, else it'll be boring if everyone's the same. So this is his rear hub, and again, this is off mag wheels, mag wheel trials bike. So he said, what could you do with that? So we can, this is nothing. It's all in place, all nice. We can take this back. We could offer a walnut and a vapour, or we could do something else. So I just showed him 5 minutes on a Canning's polishing machine, commercial 3-phase polishing machine, that we could get it back up to this. So if you start looking at that wheel now, because it could be you talking to me on the phone from home, he's local, but this is how we work. Then we do these spokes, which are like alloy lats, which are like titanium, but I can coat them in titanium. So if we had that polished, them in titanium, and then decide if we're going to bring this rim back up or a coating, however he wants it. But I think what I'd do with this is, I'd vapour this inner ledge and just polish this, because it'd be too difficult to get in. I could do it, I could polish that and do it all, but for money as well. So we've had a look at the rear up where the shoes go into, because obviously this is on shoes. Put some blue paper in, tacked it back, and it's even right the way around. It's not oval. Doesn't seem to have done too much. Haven't been scorching, getting hot, binding brake. So that was an idea, brainstorming. That's what he liked. Same as his back plate. You know, you do one part of it, and yeah, you'd have that. Bit of ferris there, but we could blast that back. Get rid of that horrible lock nut someone's put on, and ceramic coat that. And time you put it all back together, that'll start to look good. Swinging arm is the usual state to come in at. So I've just taken it back just to see what it's like underneath. And it's quite a bad casting with this. A lot of scar marks on it. It's got some peeling on it. So we powder coat that, because that would hide it. But it was on brass inserts in this. We didn't know this at first, so we just put in the ultrasonic machine, then give it a really ultra fine, and it's a lovely brass bush in there, and it's perfect. So we'd mask these up, bung this, zinc coat that, powder coat it, just do it a bit with belt, and that'd come up as new. That's not a problem. But the issue we've got, there's a couple of other brackets as well, but they're nothing to write home about to talk. I haven't got the front hub, but his front hub has got damage to all the inserts of the spokes, and it's been welded up. So the bike's a complete bike, running, but it's got a bit of wobbly on it. And when you look, when you think about it, a trials bike with mag wheels, they're going to take some stick of these, because it's not right in your head that a trials bike has mag wheels. So now he's taking it to a company who will get a block piece of billet, they'll remachine all this, put a steel insert band in it, and this is actually, you know, a fair piece of fabrication, that. So if we get that back done, the front one, not this one, I'll show you it, because I tell you what, there's some clever guys out there. Just go on to the next bit. So apart from his sump shield, which will just get polished out and back on, again, doesn't look like, this is the sad thing, you see, because when you start seeing zinc live like this, you hope for the best, because you say, well, I haven't done many miles, you know, the shoes look original, they haven't done many miles. But when it comes to internal stuff like this, it just eats away at money, you know, but that'll just get polished up. So what I'm just going to show you now, because we're going to go on to some bits in the workshop, and because it's restoration, and this video is about restoration, and I'm letting you see what I get up to. When I get different frames in, now if they're fully powder coated, and it's the worst thing to take off, blast media, because we don't use chilled iron blasting away. So we take that off in an ultrasonic tank for us. Now this ultrasonic tank I modified about 5 years ago. It's a 6,000 watt double bank pulse, and I'll show you it best. Now what I've done with this frame, because he wants it red. Now this particular Merlin frame, it's got a lot of nooks and crannies on it as well, and it's powder coated. And when I get all that on it to conventional ways I do blast, which is ultra fine, which I'm going to show you in a minute, some photographs, I put them frames in a dip tank first, because where you've got some really serious wells, it stays in there, and if you're blasting, it's not that I'm worried about my blast media, it's just hours and hours. So we put that in a tank. I will put it on for you just to show you, because if I was a younger man, I would have designed a shower one of these where you put a frame in, and there'd have been people queuing up to buy them off me, because you put the frame in, you put a chemical, which in on the days of methylene chloride, well, go back one from that, triethylene, evil stuff, and methylene chloride with 10% acid. You can put an eco-friendly as you can get a paint stripper into this, ultrasonic frequency, and your head goes, because you can't believe how it works. I would make it and patent it, but I have too many projects on and I'm too old. So we'll move on to this man's frame, Merlin, and then as soon as I finish that bit, I'm going to drop some photographs in and see what we've done on this customer's Tlr 200. All the Honda range of Charles bikes, we do loads. So I'm going to show you loads of photographs as I've gone through the procedure, because these photographs could be for you. If you said something to go in your portfolio, which the more portfolio, it's all right saying, I did it to this guy and he did this. Well, if it's stripped down and it's all done, it all adds money to your machine, plus it's part of the hobby. Remember, it's supposed to be fun. You know, this is supposed to be fun. And by doing these bits, or knocking on effect, like, should I do that, should I do that? I enjoy doing it. Everything's as serious to me, from the littlest piece to the biggest piece. When I walk in today, Monday morning, and I see the bits of the Tlr 200, which I'd prepped Friday, and I think, wow, that's mint, that's how I'd have it, and that's how you should have it. So we'll move on to this frame of this Merlin, awkward powder coating, loads of the had to be stripped prior to what I'm doing to the other frame. So we'll go over to there now. So I'm going to move on to an ultrasonic strip tank, as I said, I made many years ago, and I'll just put it on for a second. I'll just show you inside of it first, kind of things we play with and modifiers down here. Right, so I won't bore you with that too much, and then I'm going to turn this on and I'm just going to show you something. to show you a fair few photographs of, I've got a few boxes in already today of parcels, but this is how it came in. So it's a Tlr 200 frame. It came in with the frame, the swinging arm, the engine mount, the side stand, the bracket, the yokes, the carburettor, the fork legs and a couple of pivots. So what I've done with them, you've seen it in raw state, it's come in. I've done various work to it by first of all acetoning it, cleaning it, degreasing it, getting it into a ultra fine walnut blaster, and some of the pictures close up you will actually see how fine the media is and the finish. Then I've had it on a belt sander, you'll see on the photographs. Then you'll see it to a spray booth. Then you'll see it to my oven. I've gassed the frame out as well internally after we degreased it all, so we don't get any of the grease or anything else contaminated. I've zinced it all, and I've got everything prepped now to walk in Monday morning and look at zinced. I've also got a couple of other bits which I've gone through a process, you'll see, because the customer wants the yokes, triple clamps. He wants them from what they were like to polishing. So at this stage, when you see them on the bench, they're only at a stage where I've acetoned them, gassed them out, belted them, started to take them down a bit, sizzle them, and they're probably ready for the cuts then before I go back for polishing. So you'll see them. You'll also see the carburettor. It was all bunged and everything, and it was blasted. It's going to be ultrasonicked. But what we're doing with that is, I'm going to show you, when we come back onto the video from the photographs, I'm going to show you it where I've blasted it back with ultra fine. The finest we can get is like talcum powder. Then I'll be taking the float bowl off it. I'll be ceramic coating the bottom of the float bowl for heat transfer. So one of the Honda coughs on the Hondas, really popular. They used to cough out, which you'll see in many of my other videos. So when it gets built from what it looked like to what it looks now, and I've just done a shadow on that carburettor just to show you, because after I did dry blasting on it, I've now taken it to a vapor. So I'm going to have a vapor top half, and then when I do finish it, I'll have a coppery coppered base on it where it's a specialist and it'll look factory, and that's the original carburettor. And then we've got some fork legs. You'll see them as they went in, and you'll see them come out now. And to be fair, they were in really nice condition once they've come out. What we're going to do with them, you can have a look at them. There's options for customers watching now probably where at this stage, this is what I'd do anyway, because it'd identify any marks. I'd probably band sand them if you wanted it back to original, where you've got, we call it a sizzle, which I'll show you some machines in a minute I use. And then lacquer them. We go for polishing, eye polishing, show polishing, or then we will go for powder coating bottoms. So this frame in the end is going to be all white, chassis, frame, and the engine carrier, the stand and the fork bottoms with chromed triple clamps in. But the pictures there, have a close look at them as we put them up in a minute and see what you think. And then when we come back, we'll just tell you what we are going to do next on it, and also show you two different type of frame mods. Now this customer, to be fair, he did ask me if I'd modify the frame. My lead-in time at the moment is pretty bad. We're just on frames because I've got a couple of them myself to do. But the chap's done it. He's now sent the frame and everything in to me from away. It's not local. Made a good job. What we're going to do is show you that type of frame mod and one of ours in the workshop. Everyone's different, and everyone out there, what I've seen, to be fair, is good. They make a cracking job, and the guys who are restoring these bikes and selling them, stunning. I've had some mint ones in here. So everything is good, but let's show you some photographs and I'll get back to you. So these are going to be put into white powder coat, gloss. You've seen the pictures, so now you'll see close-ups in a second of where I've got to and the difference it is on working on stuff. And again, this is part for the gents portfolio, your portfolio. You pick the colours, I just do what we do and tell you the process. So right, so we'll go straight onto it. So kickstart, taken back, belt sanded, blasted, zinc coated powder, side bracket with it. So the stand we've cleaned up anyway, the stand spring and a bolt, because that's ferrous. We'll probably just give that a polish off. The engine mount now been zinced, everything blocked off obviously, but to start powder coating that now, that's transformed it as you've seen from the pictures. The swinging arm, all we've done is we've taken the bushes out for the customer, because obviously these would melt. Everything's bunged, ready. Nice coat of zinc. If you look close up now, it's altered the complete structure looking of it. Again, everything bunged again, bushes out. The only thing I've got ready there to remind me is I use that grease nipple as an insert, as a cover. When I pull that back out and I've finished it, I'll put a new nipple into that. Right, so then onto the frame. So the frame's ready, all masked on the bearings. We've gone from single bearings now to tapered. Is going for. Come down, I've done what you've seen in the pictures, gassed it out, acetoned it, degreased it. I've gone over a few bits where these mods have just been done. Not that it needed it, but I just went over them. And as you can see, what's actually happened here is this has had an angle mod on the steering head to bring it in. And then this has had the famous footrest modification, but the customer's got the one where you've still got your conventional, how it looked when it was new. This type of footrest setup. And you put your footrest on modern set on now. So it's an extension and then a plate. Nicely done. And we'll move over to one of ours now to show you the difference in ours, how we do on this half of it. So where you come down, just a quick back to there, we extend down like this into the frame, into a spline there. We blend it in. I'm just feathering it off. This goes to my friends next door for fabrication, because at the end of the day, it is structural. They're professional welders. We weld, but there's different things when it comes to frames and anything. They're skilled in that area. And then what we end up doing is we put the beater footrests on of a modern beater Charles bike, the case and everything, which now goes to this. So what we get when we put that on is that, right? So you buy these separate, or they go onto our frames like this. Now if you look at the top of this one, this is just at the moment, because we do them a bit different. Plenty of drawings on there, I won't show you that, that's ours. Is we take all this off and we take it off and put it back on again, measure it, angle it all. These plates in at the moment are only temporarily, because what we do is we take these out and then I put a proper CNC one in with our logo. It'll either be Nightingales or Velocity Pro on there, and this is a proper piece with it engraved in, and this is how it goes together. What we tend to do then is it might have the frame number, the build number, and then a plate on here off us. So that'll be one of our frames. This is one for the next special build we're getting in. So the next special build we get in, this will be the one. So on special builds at the moment, because we're sticking to one mod now, we say Special Pro Special TLR, you would get this type of frame. You would get it. I think this is, we're going to run this under number 1, because we've decided to put this frame and the specials and build it as special as you want. For starters, we've got 40 to 50 mods straight away, which you've seen on our engine mods, and you'll see a TLR 200, the one we're doing, the Rothmans, which is one of our own, which is going to be a really bonny bike. Now I'm hoping for that for the end of this week to start videoing again, because I've been promising it. We're getting there, we're just waiting for a part. That's the one with the polished engine and all the bits we've done and one of our heads on it. So when you say it's special to you, because if you order one of these, we're taking orders in now for March for the machine. So we've got about a 20-week engine and frame build and a bike. That's a one-piece tank, all re-spoked, all modern, and you've seen what they're coming like when you get them back off us. So this is the kind of work we've done on ours. So back to these customers. So now it's into this lovely zinc powder, all bunged up, every orifice, everywhere where you put a thread in it, the cups, everything else. On this one, the frame identification's going. On 95% of them, what we do is we mask off. We stand that out with the zinc underneath and the top coat on, so you can still got your ID numbers for matching engine and frame numbers. If it doesn't matter, it rolls on like this. So the next thing is, I've got these fork yokes, triple clamps, original type, original Honda. So what we've done, you saw the pictures, I've taken these down now, but what I've done is I've vapor blasted the inside of these. So that's the baseline. Customer asked us to take the bearings off as well, so we've done that. The bottom bearing. We've got new bearings, we're going to fit them for him when it's finished. And then this has just been sizzled out now, and this will go for its first cut of polishing, and so will that. So they're going to be eye chrome alloy finish. So they're going to look good, but that's the prep to get them to that now. Some people like this finish. It's a sizzle finish, and it kind of looks silvery brushed. You know, I've even lacquered these. So very similar to how we do the fork legs. So that's what they're going. So they're going for polish. So we're all in powder coat. We're okay up to now. So the fork bottoms, they're going to be powder coated. So as I just said, there's different things. You can see a few little marks on there, but the powder allied that. If these were going for ceramic coating or polishing, I'll be belting these out on a belter to put a belt in. I'll be finishing it. I'll be getting it over, probably sizzling it out a bit, then clear coating them with a lacquer for how they were when they were new. If you were going back into my stage 1, 2 and 3, if we were going into 3, that would be the kind of finish where you got this little bit of finish here and a lip round here, a bit brushed finish. If you want them polishing, ceramic coating, these are going to be powdered. So they're prepped, ready for powdering. He sent me a shaft in, the bolts are good now, they've been cleared up. I've done the shaft as well. I think I'm just going to give them a probably a little bit of ceramic coat at the ends of them just to protect them. Gear lever, brake lever, sorry. I've just gone over that a bit to take a few scars out. It's ferrous, so we might just give that a coat of ceramic coat in silver just to protect it so it doesn't go off rusty. The sump shield, he just wants vapor blasting. Well, that's been walnut blasted up to now, oxide blasted. And I'm just going to put that through vapor blaster, so now it'll light it up, it'll send it from this duller colour. My media, as I say, when I do fine blasting, dry blasting, I always add, if we're not doing it for ceramic coating, a little bit of glass into it, powder, like talcum powder, and it just lights it up a bit. A fantastic way if you're getting it back for painting at home. So then his carburettor, you saw the pictures, so that's the carburettor now. So what I'll be doing with this will be getting ultrasonically cleaned. We'll be removing the float bowl. I'll be ceramic coating this for a heat dispersant to keep the heat away from the base of that to dry the fuel out. So it's one of the modifications. But what I did, I just did a little test there, look, from that to there. You see how bright it is? So just that little bit under the Japan bit there, it's all going to be vapoured. So that's going to be eye shine with a nice coppery bottom on that. So we're about ready for powdering up now and polishing, and we're just going to give them a quick coat, a really light coat, and then we're going to powder them all pure white, these. So that's ready to go. Back onto the frame one of ours. I say special builds, we're taking end of March ready for 1, and that's about a 20-week build, and that can be to, when we say special, pro special, it's special to you because we'll do it to your colour. It could be even on the orange and black engines, you know, your Epsil looking, might have black hubs, might have orange rims, might have the orange tank, orange and black tank. Again, we're building these to the person because the different shock absorbers for the weight, body weight. If you're a bigger guy, the body weight. We're trying to build it, a clubman man or a man who's into modern bikes and he's riding getting back into the twin shocks. This is the kind that it's a different level. This is like the level we're talking about in restoration 1, 2 or 3. You go through different restorations in these bikes, but the best spoke hand built, and you can come and see it. You can have videos of it and watch your bike being built and do it in bits. You know, even great if you've got your own Donner bike where it's sat there now and you're thinking, yeah, it's just in standard format, but it's raggy. The engine's looking a bit, don't worry about it. Everything's getting replaced completely, all the stock faults. So that's a one-to-one with you, the customer, talking to me what you want, and we'll do anything. So I hope it's been quite good, this one. We'll just carry on flowing with the restoration for the beginner. Some of the diagrams, I know they're basic, but you know, you've got to understand, people wanting to listen and learn, and they've asked me for this, so I'll go through it, and at the time I'll combine it with some of the workshop jobs in, so you can see them yourself. As I say, we're based in Scarborough, North Yorkshire, 01723 370399. As usual, you can get me after 3 o'clock on a landline. If not, you can email me. Please write any comments. If you've got any comments or anything, like, you know, you're working on a project, I might be able to just have something in here and I can do it and I can throw it into a video, you know, to show you while you're at home watching these videos, which we do appreciate it. It's great if you like and subscribe. Again, comments are always great because we can get a bit of genuine feedback. And I hope you've liked this one. I've enjoyed it. And as I say, when I come in this morning, Monday morning, and see this, it's, you know, it's the difference between how it feels, how I'd want it if I got it back. And there's a couple more exactly like this. So till the next one, thank you very much.